magic number, those sodium voltage gated channels pop open and sodium rushes in. You can see that sodium rushing in, a whole bunch of sodium rushing in, the cell is going to do what? Cause it to become more positive or more negative?
More positive.
More positive. So sodium's rushing in, so this is climbing, 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 until those sodium voltage gated channels become inactive. Once those sodium voltage gated channels become inactive, sodium can't rush in. Okay? So we call this depolarization. And it's sodium rushing in because sodium voltage gated channels are open. What's the next part? If sodium voltage gated channels are inactive, sodium is not coming in, right? So it would just stay at this level. But what is responsible for bringing the membrane potential back down? Potassium. We have potassium voltage gated channels. So potassium voltage gated channels open here in this area at positive 30. They're voltage dependent as well, so positive 30. They stay open for a certain amount of time, and so potassium is going to go which direction? If we're talking about our cell, which way is potassium going to go? Where's potassium highest? Inside the cell. So which way is it going to go? Out. Potassium, we know, does what to the inside of the membrane? Less positive or more negative. Perfect. Okay. So potassium, whoops, is going to go out. And that brings the membrane potential back down. Somewhere in this region, potassium voltage gated channels are closed. So these guys are voltage gated channels. They pop open at positive 30. They stay open for a certain amount of time, and then they close. They don't have the inactive phase like sodiums do. They just go from open to closed. Open to closed. What do we call this part? The downward swing.
Repolarization.
Repolarization. Okay. You're repolarizing it, or making a greater separation of charge, or making it more negative. Once it gets past negative 70, once it gets more negative than negative 70, we call this hyperpolarization. Okay. So, yeah, so once it gets less than negative 70, or once it gets, well, I should say, sorry, more negative than negative 70, it's going to get it's called hyperpolarization. This whole phase is hyperpolarization. It's not a negative thing. It's close. It's close. So at hyperpolarization, sodium, what's happening with sodium? Sodium voltage gated channels are what? Are they all closed, or are some of them still inactive? Do you guys see that? So sodium voltage gated channels are inactive, and some of them are transitioning to the closed state. Some of them are still inactive, and eventually all of them transition to the closed state. So during hyperpolarization, sodium voltage gated channels, some of them are inactive, some of them are closed. Ultimately, all of them are gonna transition to closed after a certain amount of time. What about potassium voltage gated channels? They're closed. And so if those are all closed, right around this area, this is where the voltage sort of levels out. That's typically around negative 88 millivolts. Pretty close to negative 90. Pretty close to potassium's equilibrium. But those potassium voltage gated channels close just barely before those before potassium hits its equilibrium.